Welcome to another episode of the Jobs for Women podcast. I am delighted and very excited to welcome a very dear friend, Natasha Cadman. So Natasha is a mother, photographer and creative, and for the last decade Natasha has shot weddings all over the world. You name it, she has been to capture it behind the lens. And Natasha has always scattered newborn and family accessible sessions and branding shoots into her seasons. But after having her two gorgeous children, she wanted to capture the simplest and ordinary days in family life, the daily ebb and flow that fills the soul, even when it doesn't feel like it, which I can definitely relate to. And more recently, Natasha has launched a unique approach to women in business. So Natasha's launched her Elevate Branding Sessions, which is simply for women that want fresh content for their business on a regular basis, accessible, affordable and beautiful. And these sessions are for women in business like you. The Elevate Branding session is shared with 4 other empowering women, allowing you time and space to network in between shots. So whether you need touchpoint images for the gram, a swanky new headshot for your newsletter or your About Me page. And this is really topical for me actually, Natasha, because I recently done your session. So welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm very excited. So yeah, we may as well kick off and talk about these amazing monthly branding sessions because I was a little bit blown over, wasn't I? At the session. What I couldn't believe is how much content you were able to capture in such a short space of time. And it really resonated with me as a woman in business, juggling. I was able to go and within a couple of hours have the most amazing portfolio of shots. So can you tell me a little bit more about the sessions and what inspired you to set them up?
Yeah, so it was actually someone I did a branding shoot for. Came to me and they'd actually seen this concept somewhere and like, would you offer these? And at the time I was like, no, I won't. In a nutshell, I only do full branding sessions because I couldn't get my head around like, right, how do I make this work? More people in less time. And like my head was just like, boom. Didn't get the concept. So at first I was like, no, I'm just going to keep focusing on my full branding sessions, and that's how I went. Then we went away to Mallorca for a couple of months, and I was like, right, Jim, I need some new pictures of me for my stuff because I am literally using stuff from our honeymoon, which was nearly 7 years ago, and I've changed a lot. I've had 2 kids. I don't look the same. So I just started taking pictures ad hoc when we were out, just doing stuff, nothing fancy all the time, just casual, and then a bit fancy when we went out, maybe, I don't know, for dinner or something, just a couple of shots before. But what I loved was having the like a very varied amount of pictures. So it wasn't just me in the same outfit loads of times in one shot. It was like I'm able to use these all the time in different ways. And then the penny dropped for me. I was like, I need to do branding sessions where people can actually just drop in quickly, get some shots done, and then go.
Yeah.
Because I really realized that one, having been away with the 2 children about childcare, that when you're trying to still work, you're time poor, massively time poor. So you don't always have the time for full days of, branding shoots all the time. And finances, it's not always affordable to be able to, even if there might not be like massive amounts, but that on a frequent basis, it's not something you can just easily throw into your budget.
Yeah.
When everything else is going on. So I was like, right, let's see if we can come up with something that's one, affordable, easy on the wallet, easy on the eye, and easy on your time. So this is where I came with Elevate Branding, which I really enjoy. I love it, actually.
You can tell you are incredible. It's like you just come to life during the shoot. And it's also because, like you said, it's easy on the wallet. It's not just for entrepreneurs and people with their own business, is it? It's for people because it's affordable, whether you work in corporate, whether you're employed full time, you can just keep your social, your LinkedIn especially up to date, which is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, so important because once people, I think that those initial connectors then lead people on to the back end stuff. Then they'll see your website, then they'll see your newsletters, all that stuff. But instantly we're going to our socials. And if we don't like what we're seeing on our socials, we're kind of a bit like, they're not for me. As fickle as we are, it's so true.
And what I
Um,
loved about it was like a mini networking opportunity. It was like,
yes,
let's kill 10 birds with one stone. Let's meet
yes,
some amazing women. Let's connect. Let's have our photos done. And let's be back at our desk in a couple of hours.
massively. And that happened really organically. So at the first one, obviously, I was just thinking like you get some shots in a good way. And then after the first couple, I really realized that the people who come on the shoots were really having a good time together. Like, so when I'm shooting one person, the women in the background, they're already chatting, they're exchanging details. Like, what do you do? I do this, connected in different ways, you know, and it just has kind of organically happened that everyone that comes on these shoots tends to be a woman that is running a business that has children too. So
Yeah.
this like natural kind of sharing of like, oh, how do you do that? I do this. How do you do that? How do you make it work? We just started having these conversations were just happening
Yeah.
for other people, which is just like, I think, massive.
And why did you specifically set it up for women? Was that just, again, an organic thing for you, or was that a passion?
A bit of both, really. I tend to kind of do what I know, and I generally shoot women. So all my branding sessions have always been women. And I think it's women, not always. So it's not always women, but generally the people that I know, it's us that are juggling the time of making it all work in between. So it was them I could really talk to, and especially women running their own businesses, because I feel like when you're in when you're in I'm not just going to say 9 to 5, but a job that's, you know, you've got an employer, you've got like an infrastructure. Whereas when you don't work for somebody else, it's on your shoulders. You are the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Um, and so the conversations that I was having with women, that was the network that I was in. And if it goes outside of that, that's fine. But this is the kind of network that it just kind of flows in, and that it appeals to, I suppose.
Yeah, and then
Um,
it goes from there, doesn't it? Because then you
yeah,
get the recommendation, and and your gym, your husband Jim is a web designer as well. So
yeah,
that must help with connections and networking. That's great.
yeah.
Have you always wanted to be a photographer and a creator? Has that always been in the dream or the plan?
No, no. I think a creator. I think I've not unknowingly done that. Um, I was actually talking to a friend about this actually. I think sometimes we do it even without knowing. It's like, right, I need to fix, upcycle something, or I need to
Yeah.
have a go at this. You're always thinking of something tactile to do. So
Uh-huh.
that's always been me. But photography, no, I kind of just literally, I fell into it. It wasn't a plan. I literally went to Australia with a friend and had a compact camera that could do some snazzy stuff. And I was like, oh, I like this. And then I came back from Australia to a job, so a business travel job, which was fine. But within 3 days, I was looking at like, right, what else can I do? Because I knew early on in my 20s that this is not for me. I
Mm.
don't want to be dictated to on how many holidays I can have and how much money is being capped every month and getting it once a month. I was like, no, this is not for me. And I knew that actually, I always knew I wanted kids as well. So I knew that I need something that works for me. I didn't want to be pressured in that way because uh, my brain don't work that way.
That's
So
incredible.
photography was just something I thought I'll have a go at. I'll have a go at. And I found a woman online who then followed other people in America. And at the time, you see, people around me were just doing stuff. It was pretty boring looking. There wasn't many people doing anything where you could make money. It was exciting for weddings. And I found some wedding photographers in America who I just instantly idolized. They were making people look like people out of magazines that were everyday people, and they seemed to be having a good time doing it and making money. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I
Oh,
want to do that.
wow.
So I just kind of followed their blueprint as much as I could and made it work here. And it did. I did weddings for free. And people from those weddings were like, "Oh, can you shoot my wedding?" I was like, "Yeah,
Wow.
brilliant." And it literally just snowballed from there. And then here I am.
Do you
That's
know
my
what
big
I've
later.
noticed from what you said then? What was really, really interesting is how you recognized in your 20s that you knew you wanted to have children, but you sort of recognized back then that that wouldn't really fit, like you wanted to be paid the
Yeah,
amount that you wanted to be paid. You didn't want holidays capped, and you wanted something to
yeah,
work with having kids. But it's almost like society, it's like we know that it's going to be a challenge because of expensive childcare and
Yeah.
because, you know, you have to take that break to have maternity leave. And then when you come back, you might not get the, I don't know, the assistance, the help from your employer. But it's really
Oh,
fascinating that you
100%.
recognized it and changed the course of your career, which
I think
is
I saw it a lot. So, I've been sat there
right.
with women like trying to get the holidays in as fast as they can for the holiday leave,
Yeah.
or the school term. I've seen women sweat about, well, if I don't get the holidays over half term, I don't know what I'm going to do with them. And you think, oh, and I get that is a real pressure, because what do you do with them?
Yeah.
You put them in camps, or you have to put them with childcare, which either really expensive or inconvenient.
Yeah, but also
In terms of,
for the child as well.
for the
Like
child,
for
yeah.
my children, like whenever there's a hint of talk of camp, they literally look at me horrified because it's like their downtime from school, you know, and
Yeah.
they love hanging out with us, which is pretty hard when you're juggling and
Oh,
trying
so
to do
hard.
it all.
So
Wow.
hard.
Yeah. So have you, so talking of that, you jumped into photography, which is amazing, amazing. You're very talented at it. I think you're just so natural.
Thank
Have
you.
you faced any challenges either in your working life before or in your business as a woman in business, coming at it from that point of view?
Yeah. I think I feel like so when you first started out, you kind of almost a little bit second guess, like, okay, have a bash at a hobby. You know what I mean? Like that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, from like a family perspective, I'm quite fortunate. I've got parents who've always been like, yeah, go for it, like crack on, like that's a great idea. So they've never held me back. But in terms of, remember when I first started out, like in the photography arena, um, it felt like a bit of a tiered structure, and there was like the creme de la creme at the top, which is supposed to like any kind of industry. But getting in, you have to do a lot of proving yourself, a lot of work. And I remember being at weddings eventually where I was like the lead doing the lead shooting, and then I'd have maybe like an assistant with me, which a lot of times could have been a male one, and people would go to him, and it'd be like, no,
Wow.
it's me you need to talk to. um, so that happened a few times, and yeah, I feel like for in my industry, it can be very techie, and that's what made me kind of like a bit, oh, I don't know if I can do this, because I'm not a techie person. I'm a more aesthetic person, I'm a visual person. So I'm like, I don't care what I have to do to get that image, I'll make it work. Whereas some people are like technically balanced first and the aesthetics come after. That's not how my brain works.
Mm.
Um, so I found a lot of like in imposter syndrome. I definitely felt inferior for a long time of like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. I had people like slate my work online. That was fun. That I
Oh
didn't
my
know.
goodness. Just like
Um,
trolls, comments, or people
it
in the
was more like
industry.
like so like friends of people I knew. I didn't know them. They were like literally like they were like, are you taking the behind of less with this? And I was like, I thought that was a really good shoot. um, but luckily I had people then that I didn't have to do anything. People came to my aid and were like, no, you shouldn't, don't say stuff like that. It's a great shoot. Don't say stuff like that. So it's always a bit weird when it's someone's point of view, but dealing with that is quite a hard one.
Yeah, that's so
Um,
challenging because especially when there's
really
imposter
challenging.
syndrome already kicking in, it's like not that
Yeah,
we do not need that.
definitely don't need that. And it's I've had clients that have been unhappy with work. That's
Okay.
a really tough one to deal with. But then I think if you've been business long enough, that's going to happen.
Oh yeah, and everything's a learning experience. Same with
Oh,
me, with my
100%.
career, up and down, but you learn from it. That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think for me, what I learned fast is right, okay, so it can be quite fun to an extent because you can really narrow down. It's like, who do I want to work with? Because you
Yeah.
can sometimes just say yes to business. Everyone can be a client, but actually not everyone's the right fit.
Yes.
Somebody might want something from you that you just can't give them because you don't work that way. And then when you start to work that way, you become disingenuous and actually not to provide the same standard of work because you're not operating in the same like creative outlet.
Yeah, it's definitely a
That was
two-way
a big learning curve.
process. Two-way
100%.
process, isn't
Yeah.
it? And
Yeah.
it's similar with jobs for women. I talked on one of my earlier podcasts about how when I used to look for jobs in the past, I used to think of it as this big interview, this big performance from my side, and that it
Hmm.
was all about impressing the employer. But it's definitely a
Oh,
two-way
it really is.
process, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
you're checking that this company works for you, and Jobs for Women is all about looking at how which employers are supporting women and parents and what
Mm.
schemes they have to support and diversity and empowerment. So it's kind of like if this job's perfect for you, but what is the company going to do for me? And it's the same with you with clients, isn't it? It
Massively.
has to
Yeah.
fit. It has to be a good fit.
I think we feel like we should be like appreciative of anything because we're
Yeah.
being paid. And it's like, well, but yeah, but there's still standards that need to be met. There's still boundaries that need to be kept in place. It is a two-way exchange, especially when you've got children, because that is not um a one glove fits all kind of thing at all. Things
Mm.
change daily when you've got kids, and if you don't have that flexibility with the person you're working with, it's going to become there's going to be a lot of friction somewhere.
Have you, obviously a mum of two, have you experienced that with any clients? Have you ever, like the juggle is real, which we often talk about, don't we? Have you ever experienced like, oh, how am I going to do this shoot with the kids, work this out and fit this in? Do you have that coming up a lot?
Well, I think I'm quite fortunate because my who I work with are women and generally have children. They get it. They get it. So you can have like these open conversations. I think sometimes it's more from me who feels like, right, what am I going to like? I've taken children to work on shoots before. That's happened quite a few times.
Have you?
Um,
Wow.
yeah. Um, but yeah, it's not actually always nice because one, your concentration as a mum is immediately on your own children because you're like, what are you doing? Where are you going?
Hmm.
Don't fall down the stairs. Don't touch that. And you're trying to sound professional and get in the zone with like another person, make them feel relaxed while trying to keep an eye on your own child. So it's kind of impossible. Um, so I've learned that actually, even though that option might be there, for me as a creative, that doesn't work because it stifles my creativity. Not
Hmm.
because it's like, the children are there, it's just because I can't give you my attention. So for what I need to get into the zone for you. Um, but I've definitely faced like this, well, everyone knows when you're pregnant, there's days where you don't want to leave the house and
Hmm.
having to still get up. It's quite a labor intensive job, even though it's photography, like the equipment I carry and doing all that at like 7, 8 months pregnant. That can be quite tough. Turning up on days where you feel rough. I mean, I don't think you could do that now after COVID. If you're like, please stay at home. But I mean, like, I've turned up in positions where it's like, I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I'm not well enough to work. But again, being self employed, you don't have the option to be like, oh, so and so, could you cover for me? Not really, because your reputation. So I'm quite fortunate in the fact that I've never had like a client kind of berate me or put me in a forced corner. Um, I've always had to adapt with childcare. That's a tricky one.
Yeah.
So I feel like for me, I go do a job and then come back and do the job again because I've got to edit and cull. So I've got to find the cover during the time I'm shooting and find the cover. Well, it's normally when they've gone to bed that I sit down and do like round two.
That's like when the real juggle, that's fitting it all in, isn't it? When and then
Yeah,
you that's
and
tough.
that is
And
the juggle because I don't think that's healthy. Like I think everybody needs downtime. For your mental
yeah,
health, you need to switch off,
yeah.
whatever that is. Working until like 11 o'clock every night, that's not sustainable.
And that's
Often.
no, not at all. And what's interesting, like when you talked about carrying the equipment, I my second podcast was all about the gender health gap. And the more research I'm doing, the more fascinated I am about it. And the gender health gap is all about the comparative between women and men. So women have periods, and then we potentially go through
Uh-huh.
childbirth years, and then the menopause. So during a lifespan of a career, if you compare a man and a woman, there's a lot that a woman has to contend with. And if you think about
Yeah,
different roles, so you're currently pregnant with your third baby, aren't you?
I am.
Um, so if you're carrying the equipment,
Mm.
comparatively to a male photographer,
Yeah.
that's a challenge. That's
Oh,
tough
it is.
on your
Yeah,
body.
massively. Yeah. And then he's like after the post as well.
Yeah,
Like you're
yeah.
you're still going to work with like that brain fog
Yeah.
afterwards, the
Yeah.
sleepless nights, which I know it's all a cliche, but it's actually the cliche is because they're real.
Oh,
We
so
are doing
real.
jobs and talking to people, you're like, I can't even remember how I did like that in my car. Because you're like, I couldn't say what day it is either, to be quite honest. I've asked that a few
Yeah.
times, it's only Monday. So that sort of stuff you deal with all the time. And I think that's tricky. That is a really real, I think when you've got, well, I think especially when you've got young children, it's a struggle, and it's also a relief. Like when you can go out and speak to adults. This is why I love my branding sessions so much, because I get to spend like a couple of hours with women and have adult chat,
Yeah.
full on adult chat.
Yeah.
So yeah, the
With
struggle is
loads of
very real.
with loads of inspiring women. Yeah, that's
Exactly. So I'm just
so
like a
important.
sponge. I'll let me soak this up before I get back to Paw Patrol.
And it's like when you talk about the brain fog, that's the stuff that employers, and that's the stuff that's not talked about. So you go back to work,
Yeah.
it's kind of like if you work in corporate or for a company, it's kind of like, right, mat leave done, tick, you'll return to work then, and then you just be the person you were before, ding. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
no, no,
No.
impossible,
Yeah.
because you change beyond beliefs, don't you, in loads of ways, your body,
Oh,
you're a
massively.
mum, yeah, and that's what I want to really
Yeah.
sort of talk about and bring to the
Yeah.
forefront. I want to talk about everything that's not talked about. I want to talk about periods,
Yeah.
menopause. There's more that needs to be done to support women,
Mm-hmm.
whether you are an entrepreneur, self-employed, or whether you work, in-house, whether you're
Yeah.
employed,
I
because,
remember one of
it's
my
a
clients
journey.
actually, on that subject. She worked in the legal industry. She was, I think, a barrister, and she actually had to step down from her job because she was like, I'm making decisions and doing stuff on a daily basis, and I can't operate in that field of like clarity
Wow.
because of like, we're just raising young children. Just like I can't be the person I need to be in that room because I'm not operating at the full potential at the minute.
That's so
But again,
interesting.
she had to decide to take that step back of her own initiative, not because she was forced to, but like for her own kind of integrity.
Wow.
Because it's not there.
She recognized that.
She saw that. Yeah, I was like, I can't do this. This isn't right. But
Wow.
there must be women, thousands of women up and down the country, doing jobs like that all the time.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, that was so interesting, Natasha. Thank you so much for sharing your
Pleasure.
experiences. The branding shoot with you was amazing. I've already updated my LinkedIn profile and I'm going to put some more content out
Good.
there. I was like, I'm going to buy all
Good.
of them because I look human and amazing. You are
You look
incredible.
great, by the way.
Thanks, thanks. So if people want to connect with you, contact you, find out about the branding shoots, how do they do that?
So the best place to go is probably Instagram. I have a few different Instagram handles, but if you go to Natasha Cadman, so at Natasha Cadman on Instagram, that's probably my kind of like hub. That's where you can find everything out about me. So I
Okay.
would go there first. You can go to my website, natashacadman.com, or a blog, natashacadmanblog.com.
And I'll put everything in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for chatting to me today. It's been an
Pleasure.
absolute wonderful
Thank you for
early
having me.
morning. You're very
I know.
welcome. And I
Anytime.
hope to see you on another branding shoot real soon.
Oh, I'd love to see you. I'd love to see you. Yes,
Thank
definitely.
you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.